Super warm weekend here. I'm just headed out right now to check on everybody's water. We got to make sure the pigs are hydrated, the sheep are hydrated. You keeping cooled down out here? Yeah. Fella, you're not getting up for no man. It definitely was a crazy busy and really action-packed week. So we showed you last week, we got the sheep and the pigs moved and the new fence put up. They've got a nice big spot to roam and forage now. And this week we got our meat chickens came in the mail, and we actually got the banding done, the castration on our meat sheep. Planned on making like a really in-depth instructional video about that. But when it came to it, it was too much of a challenge to kind of wrangle the sheep to allow us to get into the proper position to be able to do that. And we just figured film it another time. Since this is our first time doing it, we want to just make sure we're getting it done right, not have to focus on filming for that. So this new bin is working out really well. We got 30 broilers or meat birds, and we have about 6 layers in here as well. We went to the farm store and picked up a few extra layers. It's working out really well. These came in, they're about probably 4 or 5 days old at this point. We have a few feeding stations in here, so with that number of birds, you want to make sure that they, for at least the first week of their life, they have 24/7 access to food. And then once they leave the bin and they move out to the chicken tractor, when they're feathered out and they don't need access to food 24/7 anymore. In fact, if you do give them access 24/7, they tend to grow like a little bit too fast. At that point, I usually do 12 hours on and 12 hours off during the day, and then I'll take it out at night. I did build this lid right here that fits pretty nicely over the bin. We have a few cats and the dog stays in this shed for now as well. So I just wanted to kind of add a layer of defense so no curious cats were getting in there and stealing chickens from us. Super straightforward to put together, just some thin pieces of wood and some chicken wire on top of that. I do have the heat lamp turned off during the day today. It's super hot outside, and while it is important to make sure that they are warm enough when they're at a very young age, it's actually more dangerous to have them too warm than too cold. So I'll turn the heat lamp back on at night, but it's off for now just because I don't want to risk losing birds to excessive heat. I'm not sure how well you can see it on video, but we are starting to see a lot of the seedlings from the seeds that we planted last week. They germinated really quickly, and you can actually see a lot of the crops coming up in the raised beds now, especially these ones here got really big. And those are some beets in there. I think there's some cabbage as well. And we had these ones here that are actually huge. So within like 3 days of planting the seed, it seems like this is the size we started to see, which is pretty wild that they grew that fast. Right in here, you can see the onions are starting to come up. We're trying to adopt a lot more of the high intensity planting that we've read a lot about it recently, and just trying to get more out of the space that we have. We'll probably end up putting more raised beds just because it's more of an isolated environment where we can kind of test out different techniques, test out different organic fertilizers, and really sort of hone in on the craft. We also started a bunch of new tomato seedlings. So tomatoes, we either do really well with them or they don't work out at all. And it's never been a super consistent process for us, and it's never been consistent yield either. So I'm trying out some starters this year, some that I'm actually starting from seed and not getting them from a greenhouse or a local nursery or anything like that, just because I want to test a couple different things out so we can really get tomatoes down in the next year or so. Starting to see a really solid amount of yield from the green beans, and those have really bushed out at this point, and there's a lot of beans coming in on there. Us and the kids have been able to taste some. I actually planted another row because these were doing so well, just direct sowed in the garden here, that I wanted to hopefully get more to where we can harvest into the fall. I did plant another couple rows over there, and those are coming up very quickly as well. Green beans are one of those staple vegetables that we like to have in the garden just because they're super easy to grow. You have to do very little to make it work with them. Just keep the weeds maintained around them so there's plenty of airflow underneath the plant. Other than that, they pretty much take care of themselves, and they produce so much. That keeps going for a good portion of late summer. You can also keep planting them and continue to sort of, so you have different harvest times, plant one crop, a couple weeks later plant another crop, and then you'll have a longer harvest period where you can spread it out a little bit for fall. I remember being a little kid, and before my grandpa passed away, he had a huge garden, and I remember walking through the garden as a little kid, and we would just kind of pick them and eat them and talk together. So that's a really great memory that I have, and maybe that's part of why I like them so much now, but definitely one of my favorites. First thing in the morning, getting everybody fed. And Bree and I walked out to the garden this morning, and there was like a zucchini plant tipped over. It looks like the mulch around the potatoes has been all dug through. We noticed a bunch of these little caterpillars on the Brussels sprouts.
It wouldn't be gardening season in Michigan without some unwanted pests and intruders in our garden.
This is really bad. What do you think happened?
I don't know. It wasn't windy last night.
During our walkthrough in the morning, we realized that worms had gotten into our Brussels sprouts. We did what damage control we could, but only time will tell if they can be saved.
All these leaves pushed aside here. Right there. Right there. Something's coming in here. We don't know what exactly. Tag-alongs. Pigs have water. Oh, yeah, good boy. He doesn't like us watching him. I am trying to kind of every day lead them out into their new pasture a little bit further, just so they kind of know that they can keep going and not just stay in one area. They're pretty good with following, especially when they think they're getting treats.